Welcome back to my channel, guys. On today's show, she's the one cooking, I'm not cooking. So Ifa, what are we cooking today?
We are gonna be cooking peppered goat and gizzards. So should be fun and exciting.
You don't know what time it is? Now let's get cooking.
Food paradise. All right, so here we go. We got our gizzards here, our goat here. Please excuse my very messy counter in the back, but yeah. All right, guys, so as you can see, I have added the goat meat and the gizzards, and I put them in a pot of water. I'm just gonna add some salt. I really prefer using iodized sea salt because sea salt is supposedly the healthiest one you can get. And then I'm gonna add some black pepper from good old corn mix. All right, so after we do all that, we are going to stir it. And we're just going to stir it a little bit just so it'll be infused into the water. And then we're going to let it sit and boil on medium to high heat for about 15 minutes. Making sure to cover it. That helps to, in my opinion, speed up the boiling process. Okay, so while we have the meats boiling on the stove, we're just gonna start prepping our veggies. We have our good old bell pepper here, a couple habanero peppers. I personally am not a big fan of spice. I do know that we're making peppered goat and gizzard, but I'm gonna be eating it, my children are gonna be eating it, so I wanna make sure that it's not too spicy. And then of course we have our essential with the cutting. Since we're gonna be blending these, it doesn't really have to be cut a certain way or anything like that. We're just going to cut them up, throw them in. I would definitely say maybe smaller pieces, depending on, you know, your blender. So we have all our prepped veggies in here. The recipe calls for the veggies to be coarsely blended. So what I did on my blender is I set it to chop. So depending on what your blender, it might be a different setting, but you definitely don't want to puree it. You don't want it to have a smooth consistency.
Kilimanjaro. She from Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro. My little baby come rise with me. My little baby come rise with me.
So it's important to add salt when you are making this pepper sauce because you know, to make it flavorful. Because yeah, you know, the peppers are in there, but if you're a salt fan like me, it definitely does make a difference. All right, y'all, so meat is done. I have it in the bowl here. We're about to put it in the oven to broil for a few minutes. So what I like to do is pretty much cover whatever meats I'm cooking with in olive oil. And then I put my seasonings on it. I don't know, it sounds crazy. I know, this sounds crazy, but I tend to put olive oil on my meats, whatever I'm cooking. I think it helps with keeping the seasonings on. It kind of gives it like a crispier consistency. So I always use the #1 staple, I think, for all kitchens is the Adobo all-purpose seasoning. So I'm gonna add some garlic powder. Can't go wrong with the cayenne pepper. That calls for a lot of pepper. I can just get the damn pepper. All right, paprika. We got some Jamaican allspice, especially for recipes such as this. Okay, so now we're gonna add the meat to our pan. Let's get it all in there. Okay. So with the onions that I had chopped earlier, I'm pretty much just gonna spread them around. Alright, so I have set the oven to high. That's if you're a little pressed for time or you really can't wait to eat the food like me.
My little baby come right with me. Maria, Maria, Maria. Every time you're looking out for me. Every time you're looking out for me. Love you, yeah, love. Everything go from Maria, yeah. Sensibility, yeah.
All right, so what we have now is my lovely assistant for today, the great Chippin himself, is going to be cutting up the goat meat into bite-sized pieces. So once you take it out of the oven, after you broil it for about, I would say about 10 minutes, it's better to cut it into bite-sized pieces so that it's easier to fry once you put it on the stove.
She no island girl, she from Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro. Nah, she no island girl, she from Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro. My little baby come rise with me, my little baby come rise with me. Maria, Maria, Maria. Every time you're looking out for me, every time you're looking out for me.
Alright, so after cutting these into little bite-sized pieces, we add a little bit of water into our frying pan. So now we're just going to add it to the rest of the gizzards. And we're just going to let it cook. So pretty much to add the water is just to help soften the meat a little more. And hopefully it should be done in a few minutes or so.
Do you want to be my wife, baby? I just want you in my life, baby. I like you. I like.
So now we're just gonna cover it up. All right, so after letting it cook on the stove for about 3 minutes, we're gonna add some oil. Move it so gently. I like to use canola oil. You can use olive oil or whatever olive oil of your preference for this recipe. All right, so we've let it fry for about a minute or two. So now we're gonna add that pepper sauce we had blended earlier, and we're gonna spread it around the meat.
Every time you look up for me, come on, look after me. Every time when I look after me, come on, look after me. Every time when I look after me, come on, look after me. Every time when I look after me, come on, look after me. Every time when I look after me, like you blast, all like tires. Looking so surprised.
All right, so we have our veggies here that we are going to add into our frying pan.
My love, yeah. My little baby go rise on me. My little baby go rise on me. Maria, Maria, Maria. Every time you're looking out for me. Every time you're looking out for me. Love you, yeah.
Everything go from Maria, yeah, yeah. Sensibility, yeah, yeah. Pretty girl like a Maria, Maria, yeah, yeah. Every time we meet up, every time be like, oh, Maria, Maria.
Every time when I look up for me, come on, look up for me. Every time when I look up for me, come on, look up for me. Every time when I look up for me, come on, look up for me. Every time when I look up for me.
She no island girl, she from Kilimanjaro, Kiliman, nah, she no island girl, she from Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro.